Over the past year, there's been so much attention on diversity and inclusion. A lot has happened around us in our world. So has the recruitment process changed in any way?
So I think that DEI has certainly been an increasing priority for healthcare organizations, to your point, very much so over the last year and a half, but also as communities have shifted and changed, and especially in healthcare, where organizations want to be creating patient-centered models of care that really do reflect the community that they serve. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been top of mind. We have had the privilege of working with a number of organizations who do this very well, and we've had an opportunity to learn from them. So both hiring organizations and executive search firms have to create processes that are in alignment with DEI principles. And I think that really starts with your selection committee, understanding what diversity means to your organization. What does your community look like? Where are the gaps? So it's opening up that dialogue with a selection committee. But even looking at composition, you want to make sure that you have diversity of thought and experience on your selection committee. You further have to educate your selection committee around unconscious bias and how that has the potential to impact the search process and how you can mitigate that. So certainly there's a focus on the selection committee and education to the client. But I think that you also need to review your tools and ensure that your formal and informal communications are reflecting diversity and inclusion as a priority. So you have to think about your must-have skills. You really want to hone in on what's most important. You want to have inclusive, unbiased, ungendered language. You want to make sure that you have a diversity statement at the bottom of your materials, that you're creating processes that are accessible. So there are so many ways that diversity, equity, and inclusion do impact the search process. And then there's also the research and candidate outreach strategy. So making sure that you are, speaking openly about your desire to attract diverse candidate pools, asking sources to consider diversity as they're providing recommendations, connect to community leaders within your organization, community leaders within the community that you serve, and, building ongoing and proactive relationships within those groups. So I would say that embedding DEI into recruitment processes is sort of an intentional and ongoing process, but one that is critically important, especially within healthcare.
Right. And there's some research that was previously done in a study that was published that showed that women in executive positions actually are paid, about 56% less than male executives. We don't have as many female executives. And when it comes to minorities, it's even smaller. It's 1 in 10 women that are actually in executive roles. Some of the things that I've heard is that we don't have enough diverse leaders in our pipeline. But then you hear on the other side that there are diverse leaders, but maybe you're just not looking for them. So what is your take on this?
Right. That's a great question. So I think from a compensation perspective, I think within healthcare in Ontario, certainly the good news is that we have a wealth of female executives within healthcare in Ontario, and with public salary disclosure and formal salary bands, I think that compensation, at least at the executive level, is fairly standardized. But in terms of diversity, you're right. We are seeing that there is not a deep pipeline in diverse talent in management and leadership roles. So that onus then is on the organization, it's on the recruiters to reach out and develop relationships, create those opportunities, create programs internally for mentorship and career development, and provide those opportunities for growth. From a recruiting perspective, I think what we are often doing is educating the client. So again, I talked about really making sure that you're focusing on your must-haves and seeing where can you get creative, where can you look for transferable skills, where can you recognize that there might be barriers to individuals within organizations, so those systemic barriers that have hindered their progression. So keeping that open mind, taking a skills-based approach, and making sure that you're really focusing on the must-haves and not the nice-to-haves. So
Right. And have you seen like a movement or a small change in terms of that area?
I have. I think that certainly over the last year, there is an expectation that you are delivering a candidate pool that is diverse and does reflect the community that the organization serves. So if that means having ongoing conversations and extending the timeline to be creative and tap into those communities that are underrepresented, we are finding that clients are very open to that and expecting that.